Hey, hello everyone. This is the sharing of the best practice in Bowen that I've conducted um, in school. So basically, I would like to create this virtual sharing so that people can learn from it as well. Um, Basically, what this is all about, I don't know whether you all remember, is about the idea of um, understanding the simplicity of mathematics and hence using that concept of simplicity in mathematics and putting into the teaching and learning of subjects, and in my case, geography. All right. So why do I um, use this approach in the teaching and learning of geography? Um, it's because when students are studying now, they see humanities as a subject about memorizing only. And the only way to change their mindset is to create another approach which promotes understanding and hence reduce the need to memorize. And later when I go into the approach, you will understand why is that so. There is also another reason why I believe in simplifying the subject that we are teaching. It's because sometimes exam questions and homework questions, they comes in different form, and hence if we are able to simplify it, students will not get out of point. And in fact, answering questions just like running a 100-meter race, just like what is shown in this picture. In a 100-meter race, students sometimes run 50 meter and full stop, that's all. That means they have not finished writing the answers and they just end halfway. Some answers only require you, just like a 100-meter race, stop at the 100-meter point. But some students actually ran 150 meter, wasting their time writing extra things. And the worst case, some students immediately just run off the track because they are not answering the question at all. So with the idea, with the ability to simplify teaching and learning, and even doing of and even assessment, students will be able to attempt the questions better. And of course, the last one is actually about teachers rather than students, because I feel that if you're able to simplify your lesson, if you're able to simplify the teaching and learning of the entire curriculum, you will be able to spend less time on planning of your lesson. And I don't want, I mean, I'm seeing many teachers are like candles burning at both ends because they just keep trying to increase the number of hours that they can spend with their kids. But I I think what is more important is um, to be more effective in designing the lesson and hence reduce the need for quantity of time and focus on the quality of time spent with the kids. So, and that's where my title of the presentation comes about, from a math student to a geog teacher. In fact, I was a very good mathematics student. Mathematics was my best subject among all other lousy subjects, in fact. Um, in JC, I think mathematics is the only subject I pass every time for every assessment, CA, SA, whatsoever. And I have no problem understanding mathematics. It is because I realize, but I don't know why during then. Why is it that mathematics is so easy than as compared to other subjects? And when I become a teacher, I realize there's something special about mathematics, and the something special is actually math is being simplified. The whole idea of mathematics is very simple. It is very structured and hence is simple. And hence, I feel that there's a need to incorporate the simplicity of mathematics into the teaching and learning of geography. So, thus, the beauty of math lies in its simplicity. Now, if you look at this fraction, this is known as, if you need to solve this fraction, what is the first thing that you need to do in order to solve it? And any student and any teacher will be able to tell you that you need to find the common denominator. So you need to actually take the 5, which is the denominator of the first fraction, times 3, and the numerator times 3, and in order to get the final answer, which is, what is that? 4 times 3 is 12, 12 plus 6 is 18, 18 upon 15. Okay, so yes, the most important thing to do in lesson design is about finding the common denominator. It actually helps to simplify the entire curriculum. So in mathematics, the common denominator is defined here is known as a common multiple of the denominator of several fractions, whereas in a layman, in a more general term, it is known as a commonly shared theme. So within the entire curriculum of geography, there are 4 topics in geography elective, for instance. Is there a commonly shared theme that the students can anchor on, that the teachers can anchor it on while teaching? Yes, there is. Now, you realize something. I'm going to show you another aspect of mathematics. For instance, these are all different equations where you need to plus an A plus a B, and you will realize that you will get a C. And why is it that there's no need to memorize what is the answer for A plus B? There's a very easy reason, because the students understand what is the meaning of the plus sign. And in this case, you can say the plus sign is the common denominator that revolves around all the different kind of equation over here. And hence, there's no need to memorize if you are able to find that plus sign, which is the common denominator. So do we need to memorize all permutations of addition without using a calculator? No, you don't need to memorize. You just need to understand the whole idea of what is a plus sign. So why the need to find common denominator in geography? The first common denominator that I use in the teaching and learning of geography is the whole idea of a concept, a common concept that revolves around all the various different topics. And what is that concept in geography? It is the concept of spaces. It is the concept of location. Basically, they more or less, in a layman term, they mean the same thing. Places, which place is this? Which is the place? Which is the location? Now, and I'm going to use natural vegetation as an example to explain to you how does this usage, how can you use the common denominator to teach and help students to understand and reduce the need to memorize and reduce the need to plan your lesson. Alright? Now you'll realize something. In natural vegetation, if you the same kind of vegetation is actually found at specific places. For instance, tropical rainforest is found here. Here you can see the dark patches, and over here. Now they are located. The common location here is around is within this latitude, from this part to this part, if you can see it. Because of the latitude over here, because of the area over here, you experience a certain kind of climate, and hence with certain kind of climate you will have certain kind of natural vegetation. Now this is the equation that I've come up with in order to teach my students and in order to help them to understand. So when there is a particular space, when there's a particular location, you will experience a particular climate, and sometimes the climate is unfavorable to the trees, to the vegetations. For instance, it can be too hot, for instance, it can be too cold, it can be too dry, it can be too wet because of the rainfall, and hence there is a certain kind of characteristics that the tree has in order to survive that climate. Alright? Now so the context is to survive. Now I'm going to show you an example, a tube chop, in order for you to understand what do I mean by how this common denominator works. Just give me a moment. Let's see. Now, before I continue, just look at this. This is a waterfall, and later they will show you a frog. Now, you don't know what you have not learned about different kind of frogs, but you know frogs croak for a reason. They croak to attract their mate. Alright, but this frog doesn't croak. And because if I teach, because now that you need to know what is the common denominator and its location, pay attention to this location, which is a waterfall, and why is it that the frog did something else instead of croaking.
Sound is not so effective beside a thundering waterfall, so one frog that lives in such a place in Borneo uses sign language.
Alright, and let's go back to the PowerPoint slides. Let's see. Now, based on that, that frog. Now, this is not something that the students learn, because the students don't learn about animals. They only learn about natural vegetation. So, will they be able to understand why the frog behave in that certain manner if they know what is the common denominator here? So based on the location, although it's not about climate, based on that particular location and that particular space, there is a harsh condition that the frog need to adapt to. And the harsh condition is not a climate in this case. It is the sound of the waterfall being really, really noisy. And hence, the frog learns to do something. It has a certain characteristic, it has a certain behavior now. It doesn't croak to attract the mate, because there's no point fighting with the waterfall in terms of the volume. Correct? So what they do is they just need to do sign languages. They just move their legs in order to attract their mate. So have they learned before? No. But will they be able to understand why the frog behave in certain manner? Yes, because they know that location matters. Now, another example over here is something the students have learned about tropical rainforests in their textbook. Now, the geography textbook talks about the trees in the tropical rainforest, and the trees actually bear fruits that are sweet-smelling and colorful. Why? What is the purpose of fruit in the fruit? The purpose of a fruit is to actually propagate the same species of the tree, because it contains the seed. Okay, so sometimes the fruits can be dispersed by wind, it can be dispersed by the sea, and it can be dispersed by animals. Now, why is it that the tropical rainforest has sweet-smelling and colorful fruits? And if you just imagine tropical rainforest location, what is it like for that particular location in a tropical rainforest? It is very dense. It is very crowded, and hence, can it be dispersed by wind? So the answer is no, because the wind doesn't reach the inside of the forest. And hence, the alternative is to use smell and to use sight to attract insects, to attract animals to eat it, and after that, maybe when they passed out, when they pass motion, the seed will be propagated somewhere else. Now, however, in this documentary by David Attenborough, it talks about the trees in tropical rainforests. And these trees, although they are in tropical rainforests, but they have fluffy seed that can be dispersed by wind. Now, what is the difference? So if I'm going to teach my students using my textbook knowledge, they will think that all trees in the tropical rainforest have sweet-smelling and colorful fruits. And when they look at this documentary, they realize that, hey, why is it that the textbook doesn't say that? Why is it that the textbook never addressed that some of the trees can be dispersed by a wind? For a very simple reason. Now, if you think about, if we teach the students using common denominator, they will start to think and they will understand why. K-pop trees are usually the emergent trees. Now, if you have learned geography before, you know that there are 5 layers in the forest. The emergent trees are the one that actually penetrate beyond the canopy layer. That means they reaches up very high into the sky, and hence they are above everyone else, every other trees. So when they are above every other trees, that location is unique because they are exposed to the wind. And when they are exposed to the wind, why would they need to be sweet smelling and colorful? They will be dispersed by wind, and hence the trees have seeds, they are fluffy. So what is the implication if we teach using facts from textbook? The implication is the students will be very narrow-minded. When they see something that differs from what is in their textbook, they will not understand. But if I teach my student using common denominator, whatever that are not in the textbook, they can actually link it very well. They can make connections as long as they refer it to the idea, the common denominator of space and location. Now here is, this is actually an orchid, and you will be able to, because you have not learned this before, but you will be able to understand why location matters again. Now an orchid, a flower, that is what is the purpose of a flower? The flower is actually to encourage pollination, cross-pollination, so that bees can help to, insects can help to take the pollen from this flower to another flower, and they cross-pollinate. Okay, and let me just show you a video of it, and you can actually understand what you can understand very easily if you focus on the idea of a common denominator, the idea of space and location.
However, do not give their pollinators any reward of any kind. In the warmer parts of Europe lives a whole group that bamboozle their pollinators into thinking that they're going to get a really sensational reward, a sexual one. They're little orchids, and their flowers reproduce remarkably closely the signals that enable a male bee or wasp to recognize a female of the same species. Several have blue patches. One is fringed with what looks like fur. A wasp's wings in the right light do flash iridescent blue, and its abdomen is covered with thick brown fur. A female wasp also pumps out an identifying perfume, but the orchid does the same, and the result is irresistible. As the male wasp nuzzles forward in his attempts to mate, he butts the pollinia which stick to him like yellow horns. He seems to be well aware that something has happened to him, but there's nothing he can do about it, and he flies off to try his luck elsewhere. Which, of course, is what the orchid requires, because this time he deposits the pollen on another bogus female. The hairs on many of these orchids run downwards, as though the female is sitting with her head up. But some reproduce her clinging head down, and then the male must land that way if he wants to mate, and he will get the pollen stuck to his rear. This one too seems fully aware that he's got rather more than he bargained for. The orchid's mimicry is so convincing and enticing that sometimes a flower will attract a whole scrum of sex-crazed suitors. Some are trying to get to the orchid and will inadvertently deliver the pollen. Other males, since there seems to be a full house, attempt to mate with one another.
Okay, now so this orchid has the flowers with the shape like a bee, like a bee, and hence it attract. Now you can also, based on this, you can infer about what is so special about the location. You will understand why does the orchid appears this manner. So the orchid appears this manner is probably because the location is not very dense. Because if it's very dense, the color doesn't help a lot, because the bee will not be able to see it carefully. Okay, so in this case, you can actually make an inference about the location. Okay, I'm going to show you another video, and you can actually make inference. And this is concerning this bird known as lyrebird. Okay, and let me go to the video.
What bird has the most elaborate, the most complex, and the most beautiful song in the world? Well, I guess there are lots of contenders, but this bird must be one of them. The superb lyrebird of South Australia. He clears a space in the forest to serve as his concert platform. To persuade females to come close and admire his plumes, he sings the most complex song he can manage, and he does that by copying the songs of all the other birds he hears around him, such as the kookaburra. It's a very convincing impersonation. Even the original is fooled. He can imitate the calls of at least 20 different species. He also, in his attempt to out-sing his rivals, incorporates other sounds that he hears in the forest. That was a camera shutter. And again. And now a camera with a motor drive. And that's a car alarm. And now the sounds of foresters and their chainsaws working nearby. Some plants, however.
Alright, now if the students have watched a video of this lyrebird, and they have been taught about the idea of a common denominator, what will they be thinking? They will actually be able to understand why the bird has to use sound. Because the forest is probably very dense. If you're just going to rely on the very colorful tail that the bird has, it is not going to be enough, because the denseness of the forest will actually block out the sight of potential mate. So they have to attract the mate by using the sound first, before and as the mate come closer, then they can use the feathers and dance around to attract them. So you realize that by teaching using common denominators, students can actually make connection to new knowledge and make sense of it very easily. But if you're just going to teach them, oh, a particular tree behaves in this certain manner, without teaching them what is the common denominator, they will not be able to make connection from this particular information to another one that they come across somewhere else. So how common is the common denominator? Now, when I say it's a common denominator, it means that it goes beyond that topic of natural vegetation. Now, in geography, there are many topics. For instance, there's a topic on river. And river, when you talk about, you can actually teach using the common denominator as well. For instance, river location will affect the energy and hence the processes and hence the river formation. Let me give you an example. When a river has three different main locations, which is the upper course of a river, the middle course of a river, and the lower course of a river. If it's at the upper course of the river, it actually has a lot of energy, very high energy because it's very steep, okay, and many other factors as well. When you have very high energy, there will be a specific process that will happen more prevalently. For instance, erosion. Because there are three main processes: erosion, transportation, and deposition. Now you realize that at the upper course with more energy, there will be more erosion than deposition. And with more erosion, waterfalls will be formed, because waterfall is a river feature formed by erosion. Now for coast as well, later there will be an example. With different location, there will be different energy and hence different processes leading to coastal formation. For weather and climate, same thing. Location leads to every other thing. So there is a common denominator. This is an example of coast. Now this particular shaded part is actually a resistant rock. The rest of the coast is the rest of the shore area is actually the less resistant rock. There's an offshore island here blocking. The wave comes in this direction. Now, if I ask you, if there's an A, B, and there is a C, which part will be eroded the fastest? And it's obvious, because of the location at A. It will not erode as fast because A consists of rocks that are very resistant, that has high resistance against the energy of the waves. If it's at B, it is a unique location as well because there's an offshore island that protects the coast over here. So when the waves comes in this direction, it's actually protected. And not only that, over here, I mean, I'm sorry, there's no legend, but this is actually representing coral reefs. Coral reefs will actually help to slow down the waves. But at C, it is a less resistant rock and is unprotected, and hence C will erode faster than A and B. Now with that, you can understand the purpose of a common denominator in the teaching of geography. The first common denominator which I've introduced is known as the big concept. It really helps to build bridges and makes connections to new knowledge easily. And as I've shown earlier, with the introduction of things that students have not learned before, for instance, a frog, for instance, an orchid with very strange appearances, and also a bird that makes strange noises, you can actually make, by going back to the big concept of space and location, you can actually understand why certain birds behave in certain manner, a frog behaves in a certain manner, why the orchid plant looks like a bee, for instance. So all this goes back to the idea of that location is unique, and hence that location has its own unfavorable conditions, and therefore the animals and the plants, they have to have certain kind of adaptations to survive. And that's all for part 1. Thank you very much. Now with that, you can understand the purpose of a common denominator in the teaching of geography. The first common denominator which I've introduced is known as the big concept. It really helps to build bridges and makes connections to new knowledge easily. And as I've shown earlier, with the introduction of things that students have not learned before, for instance a frog, for instance an orchid with very strange appearances, and also a bird that makes strange noises, you can actually make by going back to the big concept of space and location, you can actually understand why certain birds behave in certain manner, a frog behaves in a certain manner, why the orchid plant looks like a bee, for instance. So all this goes back to the idea of that location is unique, and hence that location has its own unfavorable conditions, and therefore the animals and the plants, they have to have certain kind of adaptations to survive. And that's all for part 1. Thank you very much.